Hey guys, Tom Barclay here from Kenilworth Road, where I've just watched Spurs have a pretty forgettable pre-season friendly. They draw 0-0 at Luton, the second friendly of the day. I'll be honest, from a performance point of view, this is not one that's going to live long in the memory. They had about 2 shots. One was from Mohamed Kudus in the first half, which was cleared off the line. There was another one later on from Lancashire, which he scuffed wide. But overall, not a lot from the actual performance to get excited about. But there's a bit I can come on to in a minute regarding the lineup perhaps, and the players that played and the positions they played in, which might give us a bit of an indication of what Thomas Frank's thinking ahead of this season. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about the absentees from this particular match. So Dominic Solanke was, I believe, supposed to be involved, but he's been left out due to a minor ankle injury. So he's been left out as a precaution. Bear in mind, Spurs go on Sunday, today being Saturday, to the Far East. They play Arsenal in Hong Kong on 31st, Thursday, and they play Newcastle in Seoul on the Sunday. So fingers crossed that Solanke is all fine and it's just a precaution. Rodrigo Bentancur also missed out due to illness, and Destiny Udogie was supposed to be in the starting lineup today at Luton, but pulled out. I'm not quite sure why at this point. Jamie Donnelly filled in instead at left back. Something we saw a bit in last pre-season and Patoglu about a year ago. Played left back against QPR and definitely Hearts. So he seems to be, at least in pre-season, if you can hear me whilst all the stewards are knocking down all the chairs, he seems to be the player who sort of fills in for various positions. Jamie Donnelly during pre-season. Let's see what happens to him throughout the season. This was a different 11 to the 11 obviously that was put out against Wickham in the behind closed doors friendly at Hotspur Way, the Tottenham's training ground earlier today. That game kicked off at 11. Journalists weren't allowed to go to it, but I was on the road anyway when it was on, so I haven't really watched much of it. By all accounts, as you may have seen, Pape Sarr was the sort of headline grabber from it. He scored twice. One was from a rebound after Wilson Odubel, who by all accounts played pretty well, had a shot saved and spilled. And the second one was from a nice little 1-2 from the youngster Tiny Thompson. Lovely, Tyan Thompson, I might have mispronounced that. Lovely ball across and a good finish from Sarr. Brandon Austin had a bit of a howler for the Wickham first goal, let the ball go through him. And Son was the captain in that team, and by all accounts didn't really have much of a performance to write home about. A little bit sounds like similar to what he had at Reading last week, where he looked very rusty indeed. And you've got to wonder at this stage with Son, bear in mind that Tottenham don't play on English soil again until their Premier League opener on Saturday, I think the 16th of August, at home to Burnley, whether that might even be his final performance in a Spurs shirt on English soil. But bear in mind all the talk around him at the moment. There's definitely big interest from LAFC in the MLS. I'm led to believe that Son's been open to a move this summer, particularly America appeals. I'd be really surprised, to be honest, if he were to leave before the tour to Seoul, to South Korea, in just over a week's time. Said that consistently, but we may see that. It would not be a shock if after that he were to move on. And definitely the noises that Thomas Frank has made, both from his, mainly from that first press conference where he very much opened the door, or didn't close the door anyway, on a sunny exit. It feels like it is a possibility, so we'll wait to see what happens there. But I guess it would be a bit of a shame to see him end his time over here and in that way, if it was a pretty forgettable performance behind closed doors against Wickham, in contrast to Harry last year when he scored 4 in a pre-season friendly and got to wave goodbye. At the time, a lot of fans didn't think it was goodbye, but it was. That was a nicer way to bow out, but we'll wait to see. Maybe he stays. Maybe he revitalises his form under Thomas Frank. We'll have to wait and see what happens. As from today's game against Luton, bear in mind Luton are their League One season, which seems kind of mad now. Not when you look around this stadium, because it does feel relatively low league. With due respect to Luton, they are been building a new stadium for quite a long time, but the fact that they were in the Premier League just 2 years ago, it is quite amazing that they're now in the League One. A lot of the players who are on show today for Luton were players who played in the Premier League for them, but they kick off their Football League opener, League One opener on Friday, so obviously their fitness is going to be much more advanced than Spurs, I suppose, if you're looking for excuses, I suppose, for this pretty underwhelming performance. Regarding the team that started, we saw Archie Gray once again playing midfield. Bear in mind that when Udogie pulled out, you could have easily seen Gray fill in at left back, because he did that a lot for Postecoglou last season, but he didn't. I don't think he did it at Reading either, so that could be quite a indication of where Thomas Frank sees him playing this season. I can't say I was really bowled over by his performance. A bit like when we saw him play midfield last year, his touch looked a little rusty. But again, it's early days. He's obviously a very young player, and from his perspective, that he wants to play midfield. It's good news that Thomas Frank sees him playing there. The other thing that I really sort of caught my eye was Brennan Johnson playing on the left. Now, this is something that we've wondered where he's going to fit in now Mohamed Kudus is signed, because yes, it's a squad game, yes, they've got loads of games, so maybe it might be that the two of them are rotated out on the right. Kudus obviously can play in different positions as well. He can play centrally, he can play on the left, he can play up front, so by no means guaranteed that he'll start at right wing, but I get the sense, based on these couple of games and just when he signed anyway, that was probably the position he'd be most likely to play. And if Sonny does move on, left wing is an interesting position. You've got a lot of options, but maybe not a lot of sort of overwhelming, compelling cases for who definitely should start there. Whether it be Richarlison with his injury problems, or whether it be Matisse Tell, who started up front here today, or whether it be Kudus, but I expect him to be on the right. Johnson's an interesting one. When he first signed for Tottenham, that was kind of where I was expecting him to play, to cut in off the left on his right foot. Bear in mind he often played there for Forest, I believe, and the fact that it's just generally, when you see wingers these days, they generally play on the opposite side of their natural foot. But that's obviously not where he really played in the end for Postecoglou. He's very much the finisher on the right side of the attack. And watching him today, as good as Johnson has been, he was the top scorer last year, he'll always be, whatever he does now, he'll be a bit of a legend for Spurs because he scored the goal in the Europa League final. I've kind of consistently said I don't think technically he's the best. It's not his best. He's got other strengths. He's quick. He's a finisher. But maybe like beating players is not his biggest strength, and that's clear anyway when he plays on the right. But when he's on his sort of weaker foot, playing off the left, it was even more stark. And there was one moment, but again, it's just one moment, it's a small sample size, but he was taking on his opponent and he couldn't get past him. And I do wonder if that's part of the issue when he plays on the left, that whether he's got the sort of trickery and the technical ability to beat a man down that left hand side. But with Kudus coming in, who definitely does have that ability, you wonder where he fits in, really. Mikey Moore played number 10. He's someone that it seems wants to have a loan this season to aid his development, which would make a lot of sense. He's at that age and that talent where it feels like he really could kick on now, having had a taste of it a lot last season. Number 10, it was difficult for him today. I don't think he really made that much of an impact. He kept it quite nicely when he had the ball, but he didn't really create much. I don't think really, personally, the central position really suits him as much, at least at this level right now. Tell, again, similar to what we saw last season, really, in the Premier League. Like, some nice touches. There was one nice particular clip ball over the top for Johnson to run on. He's technically a good player, but whether he has that sort of physical presence, definitely compared to a Solanke, is questionable to play in that role. But again, he's young, and when Thomas Frank took over and Tell signed permanently, you do look at someone like an Ollie Watkins and what Thomas Frank did for Ollie at Brentford, and converting him from a wide player into a fearsome centre forward. And you could make the same case for Brennan Johnson. I wonder if you could do something with him, particularly if they end up playing at times. We haven't seen this yet, but if Thomas ends up playing with 3 at the back and 5 in midfield and sort of 2 up front, which is what we saw at times at Brentford, then maybe alongside Solanke you could see a Johnson, or you could see a Tau, you could see a Kudus. There's a lot of options which we haven't really seen yet. What else caught my eye? That was mainly it, I would say. In the last sort of 15 minutes, we saw a very young team all round, with a lot of changes. Interestingly, Dane Scarlett was wide left and Lancashire was through the middle. I'd heard that Lancashire had sort of impressed Frank, like he impressed Postecoglou this time last year, and sort of got in ahead of Scarlett and Alejo Veliz, who was at the club at the time, and obviously was a £13 million striker. He's now been loaned back to the club that they bought him from. Hasn't really worked out that move, but bear in mind Scarlett obviously scored that goal against Elfsborg and was in involved in various games towards the end of last season, while Lancashire was out on loan, not sort of ripping up any trees at West Brom, who incidentally I believe are one of many teams who are keen to loan him again, or to loan him this season. Obviously Ryan Mason's there at West Brom. But the fact that Scarlett was starting out wide left and Lancashire was through the middle, I think it's fair to sort of, if not conclude, then maybe see that as an indication of the pecking order, perhaps, in that attacking centre forward role. Having said that, I mean, look, these guys, probably both of them might go out on loan by the end of the window. You wouldn't be surprised, and given all the options that Frank has, can't see them getting that much game time this season, even with all these games. But I still thought that was quite interesting. There's some nice little cameos for other players. I thought Heung-min, who came on for, I think, his first appearance in a Spurs shirt, looked quite lively, had a lot of enthusiasm, quite quick, injected some sort of excitement, I suppose, into this pretty dull game, but not a lot, to be honest. Overall, it was a pretty gentle match. That's pretty much my thoughts. I mean, like I say, most of it sort of surrounds is the main talking points are really around Sonny and Solanke. We'll wait to see. Let me know your thoughts, what you thought today, how you think the team's shaping up ahead of the season, and where they still need to sort of add a face or two going into the new season. Cheers, guys.